everybody, so now we're in Chapter 10, and Chapter 10 introduces annuities. I will tell you for this course, in case you haven't caught on yet, it moves very fast and it builds on each other. So, we're learning one thing in a chapter, and the next chapter we take what we learned and we add something else to it. So you're always going to be using those present value, future value, payment, like all those buttons on your calculator, but we're just learning new things to do with them. So now we're looking at annuities. So I'm going to take a look at a question in 10.2. We're going to look at number 7. Aaron contributed $2,000 to his RRSP at the end of every half year. What was the value of his RRSP after 12 and a half years if it grew at 3.5% compounded semi-annually? So I always approach these questions in the same way, right from the beginning of the course. I do all the questions the same. Read it first. The first time you do it, don't try to write down information. Don't try to figure it out because you don't know what you're trying to calculate. So read it and you kind of get a gist. You're given information and we need to calculate the value of his RRSP in the future. So we know we're looking for a future value. Then I go back and I read through it again and I jot down the information that I have. So he contributed $2,000 to his RRSP at the end of every half year. So we know the payment is $2,000. He's contributing that money. The money it's leaving his hand. So it's negative $2,000. So payment equals negative $2,000. He does it at the end. So this is important in annuities. We're going to do annuities that have payments at the end and have payments at the beginning. But right now we're just looking at the ones that have them at the end for every half year. So that's a different way of saying semi-annually, so twice a year. So our payments per year are going to be 2. What was the value of his RRSP after 12 and a half years? So we're looking for the future value. So future value, you can put a question mark next to it. That indicates that's what we're looking for. After 12 and a half years. So N, now N is not going to be 12 and a half. N is going to be, when I jot this down on my notes, I write down N equals 12 and a half times 2, which is 25, because N is the number of payments, and he's making a payment twice a year. So it's 12 and a half years at twice a year, so it's times 2 equals 25. And it grew at 3.5% compounded semi-annually. So we know the interest per year is 3.5%. Now again, we're looking at different types of annuities. So there's annuities that have payments at the beginning of the period, and there's annuities that have payments at the end of the period. Then within each type of those, if the payment is at the end of the period, you can also have it where the payments per year and the compounding per year are the same, like same time, or it's not equal. And the same thing if the annuity is an annuity due and it has payments at the beginning, the payments per year and compounding per year can be equal, or they might not be. So these are the things to look out for, but we're just starting now, so everything is equal here. So once we've jotted down that information, so we had 3.5 equals your interest per year. Because it was semi-annual, you go into the P/Y, payments per year, and you make that equal to 2. Now when you make it equal to 2, your compounding per year is also going to equal 2. Once we get into the examples when the compounding and payments per year are not the same, we enter this here. But right now they're the same, so we leave both at 2. Our N was 25. Make sure that you enter your 0 for present value. That's very important. You will get a different answer if you don't enter 0. Your payment, it's outgoing, so it's going to be negative, and it's 2,000. And we compute our future value. So you can see at the beginning of the course, what we were doing was pretty, well, formula-wise was simple. You could enter the numbers into the formula and get your answer. And the book was actually not really showing you the calculator. But we're building on it, and we're building on it. And now we're going to get to the point where these formulas are going to get a little complex. and it's just so much easier to put the information into the calculator. That's why I was kind of after you at the beginning, to start getting familiar with your calculator. It's important to know the formulas, and on an exam situation you would be given a formula sheet. But in an exam, you're not going to be given enough time to work out all these particular ones by formula. So that's why it's very important. But again, on an exam, even though you're using your calculator, I just don't want to see the answer. I want to see this, just like it is here. Because just say, for example, for n, you had 12.5 and you forgot to multiply it by 2. You would get the wrong answer. If all I had was the answer, you'd get 0 marks. But if you provide all your workings and I see that you only had the one thing wrong, you would get partial marks. So make sure, when you're relying on your calculator, that you still at least put the information in. Okay, so that's it for that question.